Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Paranormal Karen. Really quick, I'm reminding you all of my Patreon, which as I started, we are in July, and I have started the $5 level, which is extra episodes of Paranormal Karen, which are, some of them are just me, and the rest of them are like, what is going on in Utica, which is I'll put up a promo for that. Also, today's episode, I have Renee Watt. And you would be like, oh my God, Karen, that's enough. But I have something on the end after Renee. I had a wonderful gentleman named Martin and I already said his last name wrong. I say it right on the podcast. Called me with a positive face story, and I'm putting that right at the end of this, so you're getting an extra long. I think you're getting 90 minutes. Holy cow! But right now, it's such a great story. Please stick around for it. It's a positive, because everybody knows I have the negative fae, so it's the positive. So now let's jump in. I don't want to miss a minute. How are you, Renee? How are things up there in Oregon?
They're good. I actually have to apologize in advance in case you hear any hammering in the background, because there are people working on my house during this conversation.
Oh, well, that's a good thing.
Yeah, it is a good thing. Well, I mean, you and I were kind of talking about this before we hopped on, the record button, but it's just it really throws you off to move for a while and to just get situated and settled. So I feel like I am so happy for the move and I love my new surroundings, but getting in a space, if I'm doing readings or something, I feel like I have to take longer to prepare and get in the zone and sort of chill out. But I think it's just because there's more stress. Have you noticed anything like that?
I have so much to add to that question. Have you noticed that? And my move was a little bit forced, but first of all, I moved into a place that is furnished, which is weird because I just walk around I wonder who had sex on this. I wonder who had sex on this. You know what I mean? I'm just
yeah.
And so, and it's good, and it was good for the move, but it then, my dog died, and then I couldn't get settled. In fact, I finally got the right gym, and then I got everything, and then it all just turned over. The gym, people aren't going to class, so they moved this. It's I'm kind of just in this mode of, okay, I got to learn to just flow with this, because every time it gets correct, it's even comedy. Comedy was finally where it should be, and then now open mics are closing. It's very weird, but I agree with you. There is that weird transition, and I'm sure everybody heard on the Predictions podcast. Do you think people are already feeling the kind of yucky that could come at the end of this year?
Yeah, and I also feel because we've just kind of been yo-yoed for the last almost 3 years, I feel as a society. And so I feel people are just so used to a constant barrage of disappointment that we're all just kind of sitting around all right, what you got? You know what I mean?
Yes.
What's coming next?
There's another thing too, and we are taping this in June. Everybody knows I'm way ahead. I suddenly have a surge of people with not even ghost problems, but real, some sort of negativity has jumped up. Are you seeing anything like that?
I haven't been doing as many readings since my move, just because I don't know if I don't want to take on too much, but so I haven't been having the same sort of interactions with people, but I did have someone message me literally yesterday, just they don't have a lot of intuitive friends and we're friendly on Instagram. And they were I just had the most heavy energy wash over me. I'm so scared something bad is going to happen to me or someone in my family. Which and it's hard when someone messages you with something like that, because first of all, I don't want to discredit that that's a possibility.
Right. You can't say you didn't feel that.
Yeah. Or that something bad isn't going to happen, because people have, negative premonitions all the time. But then on the other end of the spectrum, my initial reaction is okay, diffuse, don't feed the fear,
Mm-hmm.
like call in your protection, grab some selenite, and like that's all you can do and hope for the best. But then it's also like it's so hard to unpack when you have these feelings of dreads. Like, is it an entity? Are you tapping into something that's going to happen? Where is it coming from? And even as a professional, it's sometimes hard to know exactly, what's coming through in those instances where it is just sort of like off-putting.
Yeah, because they're tricky.
Yeah.
And that's like, I don't want to scare people or anything, because I'm telling you, the podcast that I'm doing in my Patreon about Utica is just, Utica's crazy, the crazy history out here, like it's beyond. So I almost feel like I'm kind of sitting in a little pile of darkness, yet at the same time I'm learning so much. But I do feel like, all you can kind of say is everybody ground, know who you are, and take care of yourself right now, because I do think there's sort of small attacks happening, and I don't that shouldn't scare. They're listening to this show, so they shouldn't be scared, but they might be aware. Aware is a better word. Like, just know how to protect yourself, say your prayers or whatever you do, or like Renee said, grab your selenite and I don't know. It's just, I feel like that turn, it just feels like a turn. And maybe that's, I think every time that phrase, the veil gets thinner, which we know it's not a veil, it's how we see things, but
it's our perspective and tapping in. Yeah.
Thank you. It feels like a little darkness starts the next phase and then it gets light again. Maybe that's just me. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely could see where you're coming from. And it's interesting too, because like, if I am looking at things from an astrological standpoint, the concept of like the veil getting thinner, I do honor Samhain and that time of year, and that, there is this sort of like spike in activity. But when we're looking at people's personal charts, like the veil thins at different times. You are more psychically in tune at different times based off of what's happening in your astrology chart. So I feel like that could have kind of a role in it too.
Interesting. Wow. Well, already, God, we're 10 minutes in and we're already not even close to where I wanted to go with you. But yes. Okay. So we'll probably end up circling back to that. But I had a particular topic I wanted to sort of, I don't even know how to bring this up, but I think you would be the perfect person to explain, as someone who's sort of not, I would say not a practicing witch, people might call me that. I heard quite a few people talk about, channeling or talking to a particular entity. Like, I know you guys when you used to work at the Crooked Path, there was a lot with Hecate or Hecate, and also Pan, or all these sort of beings. Can you give us sort of a good definition of what happens there and what you're doing?
Yeah. I mean, for every practitioner, it's going to be different. Some people just want to commune with the deity. Some people want to petition them for help with manifestation, or just, give an offering and honor them. So it just depends on like what your relationship to that deity is. Like, there are people who are super devoted to Hecate that will honor her every new moon and, call her in and like offer their allegiance to her. And I don't really work with deities in that way. I don't like committing myself to
I
any
like
sort
that
of religious practice.
I think too. And also, can you just give us a little idea who Hecate is? Hecate or Hecate? I'll just say it a million times. It's the beer I drink is Hecate. No.
I mean, she is a Greek goddess. Some people say that she kind of started out as a Titan, but really what it boils down to, if I was going to kind of embody her essence, she's called the witch's goddess. And she's a huge advocate for women. Like, I've heard other practitioners talk about the fact that, like, if you're a man and you want to work with her, you have to, like, you can't fuck around women. Like, you have to be super respectful of women and super for the empowerment of women, because that's everything that she stands for. And she's one of the more fierce and kind of scary deities. Like, she'll kick your ass for sure. She'll slap you around. I had an experience with that where, I mean, I can just get into my Hecate experience.
Sure, I would love to. And also, is she the one that has 3 faces?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's like the mother, maiden, and crone.
Okay, got it. Okay, perfect. Yeah, tell us about your experience.
Yeah, and she has like hounds, like hellhounds. Dogs are really big for her. But I'm just gonna let Voodoo out. She's scratching at the door.
Okay, here, hold on. I'll pause and you do it. Okay. So, folks, Voodoo is back in, and Voodoo is your dog, right? Correct? Or cat?
Yeah. Yes. So my dog. She has some cat energy though. She's very handsy. But yeah, she was just scratching to get out. Oh no, there she is. She wants back in.
What did
I just say? I said that was gonna.
Well, I have to laugh because the way you said it, you were like, "I'm letting Voodoo out," and I was like, "Oh, we're doing Voodoo now. What's happening?"
I'm unleashing it. Here, okay. She's like all amped up. I don't know what her deal is. Probably because there's a lot of people in the house.
And she's a little teeny baby pug, right?
She's a short-haired Brussels Griffon.
Oh, she's so cute.
She's got the pug face.
Oh God, and all those names very fancy.
Yeah.
Okay, tell it. Well, maybe you brought up Hecate and hellhounds, and Voodoo was like, "I got to get my act together to be a hellhound."
That's true. I think she's also like tapping into the magical energy because she was licking my tarot cards before we hopped on, and I was like, "Don't do that." Okay. So this was like my biggest experience with Hecate, where this was like years ago. So I've learned my lesson on these types of spells, but I was like 100% like trying to do a love spell to get the attention of someone who like wasn't giving it to me type of thing.
Oh, okay.
And it was my first time ever doing a spell like that, and like with her. And so I was just like, hey, see what you can do about this. And nothing special happened during the spell. That was just, what happened. And then like 2 days later, I was laying on the couch in my room watching TV, and I just was aware of an entity in my room. Mm-hmm. And it said to me, "Do you still want him?" And I said, yes. And I felt like I was being deflated. Like she took payment. I felt like she took of my life force, to be honest. And the point where my breath left my body to where I was like, and I just was like totally energetically depleted for like 2 or 3 days. I got it back. So it's not like it was a permanent, you know what I mean? Like I was able to regenerate. But that was like my first experience where someone came and like asked me to validate my spell and then took energy like that. And I've worked with other deities and nothing like that happened, but stuff happened. Nothing like that ever happened. So she took payment.
Now, did that scare you, or you were just like, oh, okay?
I was like, oh, fuck. Because I was like, what's she going to do? Like, how is this going to because you hear stories about people like doing a love spell and all of a sudden they have a stalker.
Yes.
And I just felt like she's gonna do something.
And did she, or everything turned out okay?
Everything turned out okay, but it's because she like gave me a line. So it was like a month later, and I was in Sedona. I was on a hike. It was like a very mystical, magical hike. At one point, I heard someone playing the flute. There were deer in javelina. It was just like a good hike in Sedona where it's so active. And I was walking down the trail, and I just again became aware of an entity just sort of summoning me from behind a bush, just like, hey, come here. And I didn't know who or what it was. I just wanted to, it piqued my interest. I wanted to investigate. Mm-hmm. So I went, and she was like, hey, I'm going to do it. Like, I'm going to cast a spell. And I was like, oh, fuck. And then I just started being like attacked with flies. It was fucking crazy. And I was like, I don't want that. I don't want it. I'm so sorry I asked for that. And like at that point, honestly, I actually didn't want it anymore.
Because I was just, you didn't want that person.
Yeah, because like I'm an adult with self-worth and I got over it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so like at this point I just had like a passive interest, and it wasn't worth spell magic, and I was kind of already involved with someone else. And so the fact that I was like starting to get involved with someone else made me think like, I don't need this mess at all.
Right.
And I was just like so emphatic, like, I don't want it. I don't want it. I don't want it. And she said, okay, do your best. And that was it. And wow. I just felt like she was like, all right, I won't do this, but you just work on yourself. Like you just make yourself better. You just, you know what I mean? Like,
right. Wow.
Focus on your career and all the things that are important to you. And as I after I called it off, like I stopped being like attacked by flies and
wow, that makes sense. That's isn't that sort of, I don't know, but I feel like, and then you went to the crooked path, and there, should we use the term respectful or know more about it? Because I know, isn't that his person? Isn't Hecate his person?
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about sort of like the way I made sense of my interaction with her after I had some time to process it too, was when she visited me in my room. I think that what she was taking was like my feelings for this person.
Oh.
And like, whatever obsessive weirdness I was harboring, because you have to be somewhat obsessed with someone to cast another fucking spell on them. Like you just do.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that like shortly after she visited me, I stopped caring. The conclusion that I came to was that she was taking all of my attraction to this person away from me and was going to like put it in them. And so I was like, dude, just trash it. Like, just trash it. Let's move on. And she did. So it was like, and I appreciated the fact that she was giving me a chance to sort of like regain my senses and not like go on some crazy journey. I appreciated that. She was like, dude, are you sure?
Yeah, that's a good. Okay. So then you kind of, when you go back to the crooked path, and they're sort of like, because the crooked path, which is where I first met you, which is really kind of this weird, fabulous hole in the wall kind of place. In fact, I go there, I get, well, I don't go there anymore, but he makes dragon's blood something. It's like a liquid.
Smells so good.
I wear it as a perfume. And my friend Tommy, my demonologist friend, he first made it with me with a little anise in it, so like for protection. And even what is his name? How come I can't remember his name at the Crooked Path? Sal. He said it's not really dragon's blood, but he explained it to me. But you are correct. It is like the perfume, and you put like a dot and you're good for weeks. And so when I met you there, he has a room upstairs, and I don't think it's a secret, where it's sort of dedicated to Hecate, isn't it?
Yeah. Their temple. It's been getting really crazy in there too. They've been having artists, painting murals of her and stuff. It's a really beautiful space.
Wow. So if you're in the Burbank area, it's very small, but it's just amazing kind of place. And it had a stage, and I was like, oh, I should be taping a special from here, but it never kind of happened. But let's take a break and get right back to this spell work and deity stuff. I love this. Okay. Hey everybody, I wanted to tell you about the $5 level I added to my Patreon. Starting in July, I'm going to be doing exclusive Paranormal Karen content there. It's going to be 1 to 2 episodes a month. It'll be a little different than here. Most of the episodes will be me talking about what I'm looking into or what I'm investigating or what is fascinating to me. I'm also going to be doing a series called What's Going On in Utica. When I moved here, I had no idea what a paranormal hotspot this was. People started telling me about the hauntings in their homes, and I was shocked. I have never heard stories like this, and I've been doing this about 30 years. Historically, this area is fascinating, with everything from the Underground Railroad to horrible Civil War battles to even the mob moving in at one point. And I'm also going to be covering a lot of true crime out here. I have never done that, but the stories out here, the unsolved murders, are so crazy. This place makes Los Angeles look like a kid's playground. So go to Patreon.com/Rontowski and you can sign up for the $5 Paranormal Karen level, or you can sign up for some extra tarot stuff while you're there. All right, back to the show. It's interesting. On my Patreon podcast, I sort of did an episode. There was someone I was watching on TikTok talking about chaos magic. And I just found it like, woo, this is really obviously a 1-minute TikTok is a little irresponsible, but I always thought I want to listen to the people that do it and know, that was a great story of not beware, but know what you're doing. And but sometimes do you just commune with these deities, or do you take it's always kind of a big production, for lack of a better phrase?
For me, I feel like I commune during meditations, and I feel like I'm working more closely with my spirit guides than anyone. I'll sometimes meditate and try to connect with the deity, but I'll give them a place of honor. Like Hecate, and Pan is kind of my main man when it comes to deities. But I don't go into like a trance in front of my altar and try to
channel something. Yeah.
Try to channel them. People for sure do that. I've heard of people like going out into the woods and drawing a circle so that they could conjure Pan and then have an orgy, because he's the god of like sex, like sex and rock and roll basically is Pan. I mean, there's way more to it than that, but if I was going to try to be cheeky and explain him quickly, that's how I would.
Okay, so and we could expand that a little and say he's the god of sexual energy.
Yeah, totally. Which is great for me because I'm a Scorpio. So Scorpio is like one of the more sexual signs, and I have an Aries moon, which is the other sexual sign, because they're Mars ruled, and Mars is like passion and sex.
I have an Aries moon too. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's where that primal, like, I got to get some,
I know that
comes from. Yes, exactly. You could thank your Mars placement. But yeah, so I find that energy really normal and agreeable to my aura. So the first time I ever worked with Pan again was at the Crooked Path.
And you would work with him to evoke energy, evoke a person, a love spell. What would you work with him for?
Yeah, so I actually used him for like kind of like, this is what I'm wanting to manifest in my life right now, which was like someone who can help me in business and like maybe a boyfriend. So it was like more of a love spell where it was just like, hey, this is what I want, versus like, this is who I want. Those like very different types of spells, But I was at the Crooked Path, and Scarlett was teaching a class on Pan, and at the end of it we did a ritual to him. And I always just, with witchcraft, I always just take it with a grain of salt. Like, I'm here for it, I believe in it, but I don't expect something crazy to happen. And I was writing down my petition for my spell, which was like, yeah, what I just said. I want love. I want someone who can help me in business, like a manager or something like that. And as I was writing it, I saw a brown portal open. And he chills in the forest, so there's a lot of earth energy. So brown, like the brown color didn't scare me, whereas it might indicate murky. Like, to me, it just felt like earth energy, like Pan. But it was crazy. It was just in my periphery, and it was just like, all of a sudden there was like this brown disc of energy at my feet, and I didn't look directly at it because I find that sometimes things disappear when you do that.
Yes.
So I just kind of held it in my awareness and continued to write my petition. But I just thought, oh, he's like here. He is here. And then I met my current boyfriend who, there's the love aspect. And he has been valuable in offering me business advice because he works in entertainment, a little bit behind the scenes. But it was just kind of like an interesting 2-for-1 that came through later. And what was funny is when I met my current boyfriend, I was drawing tarot cards, like you do when you meet someone, you do a pull every once in a while just to see. And every time I pulled, and I was using my Greek mythology deck every time I pulled to just like sort of like, what's your message for him? I pulled the devil. But the card is Pan. Oh. So I was like, oh, this is Pan. And because like normally I'd have been like, oh shit, it's the devil. Like I should watch it. But it was more like, oh, it's Pan. Like this is him like letting me know that this is his delivery.
Oh, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
He is Pan. Okay. So that makes more sense to me. Another one, I don't know if it all crosses over, but Callie, I knew someone and I kind of just believe everyone and also take them all with a grain of salt because I don't know what's going on in their head. But I certainly would never tell anyone I think they're full of it or anything like that. And I find every story holds something. And she felt like the spirit of serial killers were coming at her. So she was working with Callie. That was the whole conversation. And I know that Callie is another one like Hecate. Like, isn't Callie when you need to fight?
Yeah, from what I think I know of her, she's the goddess of destruction. And I haven't worked with her a ton, but that I feel like that's what I read about her, that she's the goddess of destruction and she'll like mess up whatever you need to mess up.
Yeah, that's a weird I don't want to say this out loud, but I'm like, I hope I never need anything like that, but I might.
Yeah, I mean, something like that could even be good like for cleansing a space too, though. Like if you're like, okay, I want to call a deity into my house, to my house cleansing, and I want to just really kick the ass of the energy that's in here, then you might call her in. But I would be afraid to call her into anything having to do with the home if she is the goddess of destruction, because like
you don't want the whole home to come down.
I was like, what's going to happen to my roof?
Yeah. That is interesting because the places that I'm living in a house has to be built in the 18th century. Like it's crazy how strange these places are out here in Utica and how haunted and how, they haven't been knocked down and rebuilt. They just have been sold and sold and sold. But the whole place is crazy haunted. Crazy.
Oh, I'm sure. You know what? It probably wasn't haunted until your ass moved in there, and now all your neighbors are like, "What's happening?"
Well, maybe that it's funny. I'm having on a medium that is helping me with this. Betsy Palmer is going to be on. She's also going to do on my Patreon. She's going to do a crossing over from here. But it was very interesting because I kept seeing a man in a hat, And I asked my other friend, I was like, do you sense anything in here? And she, without knowing that, got the same thing. And she said, he's going to bring you souls. Because I'm sort of in this weird medium place where I want to learn to cross souls over. And I want to learn my mediumship, but I want to, I'm always on the side of caution. And then Betsy sent me an email and she was like, there's a guy there. And and she had this whole story. I'm not going to tell the whole story, but it was like, it was exactly right. And she was like, he's glad you're the only person that hasn't been afraid of him. Yeah. So I think I have some work to do here, but yes, I thought that same thing, but then I thought, I don't know, this place was bad before I get here. I almost thought that in a way I fit in like a glove here, but I have to watch it.
Yeah.
Wow. So working with deities. Now, when you do you do regular spells, or are you kind of like, my life is pretty good, I don't need this right now?
Right. So right now I feel like I'm living in like the curse of manifestation, where all your shit comes through and you're like, I got to adjust and figure out how to take care of this life that I just built. So I'm kind of in that stage where I'm not casting right now because I gotta adjust. I all my work has picked up. I'm in this new space. So I am chilled out now, but I'm always like lighting a candle each day. I'm honoring my spirits. I'm meditating. So there's not a lot of casting yet. I assume there will be probably in the next couple of months. But I think that like for me, it's more of a daily practice than a ritualistic, like full moon, new moon type of practice. Like I can't remember the last time I did a new moon ritual or even set my crystals out to charge under the full moon.
Yeah, I don't have that many crystals too. I just have selenite, and I think you don't have to charge that, right?
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, you don't. Yeah, because I used to bring like trays outside, and now I'm just like, I'm gonna throw this ring in the windowsill and call it a night.
See, I love that though, because I feel like it can get too complicated and you can get too caught up in the process.
Yeah, and I also feel like I was really gravitating towards crystals and tools when I was less grounded in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I was more of a mess and more all over the place. And I'm like almost wondering if that was just to help reconnect me to earth. Like I needed something physical to connect with, because now I feel like I can just connect when it's time to connect. I do still like holding crystals when I meditate though, just because I think it amps it up a little bit.
You know, if I, it's funny that you say that, because I just had this conversation too with someone else on the podcast about how it's sort of, I think everything is changing, and I think the rules, I guess if they were rules, are changing.
Mm-hmm.
And Carolyn Mrs. Medical Mediumship class, she also kind of reconfirms this, which is meditation is sort of to train your mind to sit down and clear. And now, like, because of so many readings or so much time, it's much easier to do.
Yes.
Like, and I'm with you on tools. Every once in a while, I feel like they help, but also sometimes I feel like it's too much.
I agree. And like, I always felt that way about wands and swords, like in spells. I always just kind of like, I just always wanted to work with the energy that I had and maybe some candles and herbs. But I always felt kind of goofy holding a sword or holding a wand. Like it was like some elaborate cosplay. And I don't mean any disrespect, because I know it's like, I actually have great respect for magicians who are like very much like, here's my pentacle, here's my chalice, here's my, everything on their altar. And I respect that it's not just a sword, it's an element, and it's not just a wand, it's fire, it's creativity, it's passion. So like, I respect that. Just for me, I have a hard time using it.
No, I'm with you on that. And I think those things work differently for different people. And it's so funny because I'm getting ready. My sister's going to do some photo shoots for me for a psychic stand-up show. So I own a chalice, a sword. I haven't found the wand yet. I think we're just going to use a stick outside because you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's all for pictures.
Yeah.
But I do kind of, as much as I feel, I mean, I have a real sword. I have a real long, heavy, was from a movie prop place sword.
Oh, and that's cool.
It's so cool. And it's one of the few things, I didn't bring that much with me, but I was like, I'm not letting this go. And
I want this sword.
Yes. And look for one. And actually, if you, sometimes you can get them on eBay and stuff. So I can't remember. There was one I was jogging by, in LA, they have those where all of a sudden you'll see the weirdest yard sale where it's like 400, dressers. And it's all old movie props that they're getting rid of or stuff that they used on shows. They put out a big yard sale and they had a sword, and it was a long, thin one. It was a real samurai, and it was just a little too much. And then I was like, well, I need a sword. So I got this one. It's really quite interesting. It is a weapon, and I keep it close.
I love that you're very casually like, well, I need a sword. Like,
I did. I was like,
I know. I'm like, now I feel like I need a sword. Yes. It's like a good decorative piece.
It is, but also when it comes out of the thing, it really makes that noise like, whoosh. And I thought if anybody was in my apartment and they heard, whoosh, and then they saw it, you would at least have an extra second for them to go, what is that? Like, is someone coming at me with a sword? So,
yes.
But also, like, when I was traveling cross country, I made sure it was in the trunk and no one could see it. Cause I was like, someone's going to steal that. That's a good looking.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I have a lot of swords around, but not for, I don't do spell work, but I also do like those. If you Google this, folks, you can find it. The earliest pictures of Jesus, he always had a magic wand in his hand.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
And then they built this entire empire around taking away our power.
I know. Well, I'm talking too much about me. I want to get back to you. But I downloaded this book, this woman I saw on TikTok. There's a book that is the Bible, and it is interpreted directly from Arabic to English, and it's so different. Like, there was something about, there's a saying, the poor in spirit, something about the poor in spirit, not that it was a good thing. And you go, what does that mean, the poor in spirit? And what it means, poor in spirit, is actually people that are unattached. Like, right? Like, isn't that what we're trying to do? Like, not to be attached to things or stuff, and the poor in spirit, like, we think poor, they didn't have anything, but it wasn't
right.
So.
Right. No, it's a totally different perspective.
Yes. So this for me, because like I said, I'm living in a furnished place. When you moved into your place, did you do a cleansing? Did you feel the vibe? What was it like when you picked out your house?
Oh my gosh, yes. So I definitely feel like the people that lived here before me were probably a little bit more anxious and neurotic, because I expect a bit of tension. I know what my mind and my body does when there's more stress, like in a move. And I was having like anxiety that I knew wasn't mine, and I knew it wasn't my partner's. And I was like, oh, I'm picking up on like the people who just have already imprinted all over this house. And sometimes the walls would look psychedelic. I don't know how else to explain it, where, especially if I was working out, I have like we have a gym, and I would do cardio, and then I would like do bar work. I have like a little standalone bar for stretching and ballet stuff. And I would like put my leg on the bar and be looking towards the wall, and it would just look like it was alive somehow. Like, it had an aura, like the wall had an aura that I could see.
Wow.
And I was like, what the fuck is, like, I don't know what that is. Like, I guess the house has a personality, and I think buildings have personalities for sure. But I totally was like, all right, I just gotta make it my space. So I waited for my boyfriend to go out of town because he hates all the smoke. And I did the house cleansing, and it was weird because at one point I hit a spot in the house, and I was like, oh, there's like a man here, and he's just been creeping out and hiding around. And I did feel like at night, I did feel watched sometimes by something that was trying to be scary, but wasn't. Like, when I see entities and they're like, look at how creepy I am. I'm like, you're not. I used to live in Oakland. Like, you don't scare me. And so I found him in my closet, not because I was looking, but just because he popped up. And I staged, and I was like, oh, he's going to be mad. And then a door slammed. And I was like, shit. But I didn't feel him any more in the house. And when I was done with the staging part, because I always stage counterclockwise and burn black candles, and then I bless clockwise and burn white candles. And so after I was done cleansing, I went outside with my dog to let her out. And I felt like once I got out of the house, I felt like a mask went over my face, like he was trying to attach. And I felt him like almost kind of like get in there, but I knew what was happening. So I like really quickly put up my walls. But when I felt like I had a mask come over my face, Voodoo looked at me like, what the fuck is happening? And then she ran from me for 20 minutes and would not come back in the house no matter how many treats I offered. And we don't have that relationship. Like, she loves me. Like, she always wants to be wherever I am at all times.
Right.
And so she, for 20 minutes, I was terrified because we have coyotes.
Oh.
And she was just like not having it. She was hiding. Finally, I don't know how I got her back in the house, but I definitely felt like there was something that tried and failed to attach. But I'd never had that happen before during a house cleansing.
Wow. And you know what? Let's take a break, and I'm going to bring it right back there because I think this is a perfect place. Hold on, folks.
This upcoming event is not affiliated with, however, is supported by Just a Raid.
Now, back to your regularly scheduled alien programming.
Hey, Clark, have you heard about this alien school field trip August 12th to 14th this summer?
Oh, Dwiddle, did you forget we're taking the ship to Starstruck Farm in Lebanon, Tennessee?
Yeah, and did you hear about all the places to stay? There's triangle houses, in-horse-style hotels, and twig homes, or you can just pitch a tent.
Yes, there'll be food accommodations, restful spaces, and a weekend of spiritual fun.
Oh, I know! Like the show with Karen, and music, and energy exchanges, and bonfires, and classes, and just rolling around in the grass with all my alien friends.
Don't forget the Supermoon event.
I'm gonna buy so many souvenirs from the market they're having.
Just imagine the vibration we're all gonna leave behind with the blessing of the land.
I know, I'm so excited for all the dimensions to be in one place.
Well, we need as much of the collective to go as possible, so more of us beings can tag along.
Get your human vessel over to www.alienschoolfieldtrip.com.
Book your lodging and tickets now.
You know, that is one thing here. I guess I kind of feel like with the boss gone, Courage was always just a great, if I didn't see it, I could call the animal communicator with Sonia and go, what is Courage looking at? What is he seeing?
Yeah.
And only once did he, and this was in LA, and he was barking. He never barked. And he was sitting in the room barking at something. And I called Sonia and I was like, what is it? And she kept going, it's a man, but he has a bird head, which I don't know if that's Anunnaki or it's something Egyptian.
Right.
But
Right.
he didn't like it at all. And I don't know if the Anunnaki, I don't know that much about aliens to know if the Anunnaki are bad or good, but I do.
Yeah.
There's part of me that's like, I wonder if Courage would hate it here because it's so haunted, or if I felt protected with him here. Because he would go, I took him twice to Post-Town Elementary, and he didn't like it, and he wanted out, so I never kept him there. I always had him there for a minute, and one time when I didn't have a hotel room, he was there for a minute. But he wasn't afraid. He was only afraid once, where it was something terrible. But I really do miss that cat or dog giving you the signal of what's happening.
Yeah, and they do. I remember there was one time Voodoo was staring at the corner. This was at our house in LA. She was just staring at the corner, and that house was over 100 years old. You've been there. There, it was old. So she was staring at the corner, and I was like, she sees something. So I just went and sat next to her, and I just started staring at the corner too. And I saw all of a sudden there was like a little orb just floating through the air, really, really tiny, but I could see just like this little light floating through the air. And then it vanished into just like a little tiny bit of smoke. And I had never seen anything like that before. And clearly Voodoo hadn't either, but we both made the exact same face where we like, when your head goes back and you furrow your brow and you're like, what?
Yeah.
And I saw us both do that at the same time. And then she started barking at the wall. And my boyfriend was like, why is the dog barking? And I was like, we just saw a ghost. And he was like, oh, geez. He's so not here for the ghost stuff. But he's just like, okay.
Yes. He doesn't hate it though. He just is not there for it. Correct?
Yeah, he tolerates it. He doesn't believe in any of it. Sometimes we'll have these like charming conversations where he's like, what are you doing today? And I'm like, oh, this lady wants me to talk to her dogs. And he just will like roll his eyes so hard. And it's, I know he's not being disrespectful because it's making me laugh. Because I don't need him to believe in it. As long as he knows that I believe in it, that's all I care about, that I'm not like scamming people. And it was just like those funny little exchanges happen all the time.
Does he have that way? I find a lot of magical people have the partner that doesn't believe, but also has a little bit of like, I don't believe in psychic stuff, but my wife is always right. Or she like one partner carries the magic for the other. Like, I know I have people I read for that go, I don't believe in psychic stuff, but you're always right. Which is like, I feel like that comes from something terrible or scary that happened that they can't let it in, but they'll let you carry it for them.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, his dad was also like a literal genius who worked for the government on space projects and lasers and stuff. So he he comes from this kind of like scientific, upbringing. So that might be part of it. But I also think, I don't know, I think it creates a nice balance because I'm not great at the logistics of life. When it just comes to like knowing what to do with your money, knowing what kind of car to buy, stuff like that, like I have no grasp on. So he kind of helps me like be a better logistical adult.
Well, that's perfect. That is a perfect match because I will tell you, the red tape between here and California was 3 months of insanity, whether it was health insurance or car insurance or like, I don't know. I think I don't, that's the only thing. Like I'm wondering if I'm going to have to move out of the place I am because of a rent agreement I had with them. But I'm like, that's my greatest nightmare is I'm going to have to find another place and change all those addresses. Like that stuff makes me cry. I'll go into a house with demons, but once you hand me change your registration, I can't do it.
Oh my God. I'm still trying to change my registration. It's taking forever.
I couldn't let go of my California plates because I was like, no. And then thank God California didn't make me send them back, but I had to retire. At first they were like, you can keep them till you're done. And then it just wasn't working. But the California guy was like, you just be sure you destroy those. And I was like, oh, of course.
Wink. I know. I'm so sad. I had the best custom plates. They said Miss Tarot.
Oh.
And now that's just going to be stupid numbers and letters.
Well, my license plate, not personalized, was like a number and then EVP, like in Go Something.
Oh, perfect. That's so perfect. That was intentional from like the other forces. Like that was 100% intentional from the universe.
I know. And now it's not bad because it's easy to remember and it's numbers that I like. But I was like, thank God they let me keep them because I was like, I'm not letting go of that.
Yeah.
Is there a god of paperwork? Is there a goddess of red tape? I need that name.
Oh man. I mean, I feel like you could work with Mercury because it's like the messenger planet. So if you like mental clarity. So if you need to like just hammer down, or Saturn's good for responsibility. You could work with like Saturn and Mercury. You'd be like, okay, but it's just like so hard because it could take an hour to change something on your insurance online. It feels like such a time suck.
It does, but also I kept getting the wrong information from California and then from New York and then from New York to California and then I got a letter. They were suspending me in California because they didn't know if I had car insurance. And then they didn't like my car insurance. And then my car insurance was like, you can't be registered in California, even though we said you could. It was very odd. I think next time it comes up, I'm going to get a national. I thought AAA was national, but I'm going to get like a Progressive or somebody where I just call them and go, I moved and they changed the rate. I think that can happen. Maybe.
Yeah.
But not magical talk. Car insurance could not be less.
I know. You know what? Sometimes you have to just, be a dumb mortal for a little bit and do dumb mortal stuff.
Yes. Well, there's actually a really, I think sometimes we struggle with being in like the 3D world and then like the 5 or 8D world. And especially people, when I talk to them about their jobs, they get upset that they just have this job. And it's like, no, we kind of got to keep those two in balance, don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Where it's like, well, I mean, because we need structure. We just do. Like, we have to have certain rules because we are in this dimension where we're not ascended beings. You know what I mean? Like we're trying to ascend. So we need this sort of like parameters to operate from, because otherwise people will be insane lunatics more so than they already are.
I know. And I think we got a year of insane lunatics coming up.
Oh my gosh. I know.
I know. I know. I hate to even go on this weird note, but like I'm ready. I wondered if I should look at maybe November and December or December and January and just log out for 2 months. Like no media stuff, maybe podcasts pre-taped, but I was kind of like, I wonder if that would be a good time to log out and just regroup.
Do a cleanse. I know. It's so hard. You have to get so ahead of the work in order to take time off. Like that's like the hard part of being self-employed and being a content creator and having it generate your business is like, if you take a break, your business goes down. Like I haven't been podcasting and I haven't been getting as many readings, which is good because I'm writing too much. Like I'm restricting what I am taking on anyway. But I just noticed, I was like, wow, like if I were only making my income off of readings right now, like I would have to be podcasting. Like those things are totally reliant on each other.
They are. And I feel kind of about, maybe this is just a girls talking podcast, but I still love it. I can still talk to you forever. I kind of, I feel like the universe, I have a good lot of road work through the summer and through October, but I'm wondering if the universe kind of put me here to stop comedy for a minute, which I have a heart attack even saying that, but but you know, and I am too. I think a lot of people are to this point right now, which is like after COVID, they all were like, what am I living for? Like it's more apparent now that I'm working constantly to get to what? And that answer is, I don't know. Yes. I don't know what is. And if it's some, you know, another thing is nobody's really, my friend says this, and I think she's right. Even though that's what I do is comedy, it's a hobby. You're not going to, there isn't a finish line, but there also isn't you're not going to make $1 million unless you're super, super famous, which is a small amount. But do people, I always get very caught up when people ask about purpose, but do you feel like, are we just supposed to be taking a break and figuring it out, or something's weird?
I honestly feel like we should just be slowing down right now. And it's so hard. I sympathize with what you're saying about like being afraid to take a break from comedy, because it's like when I think about taking a break from anything, I worry about if I'm still going to be relevant when I want to pick it up again. Yes. And it's like, I plan on bringing my podcast Witch Doctorate back at the end of the year. And I'm like, is my audience going to be totally gone? Are they still going to be there? Because it's a huge undertaking to like start up a podcast again. Yeah. So yeah, it's just like,
it's also the never ending circle that keeps us working, because I know it's one of these things where years ago I did 100 episodes of Paranormal Karen that were 1 minute, and they were just me making jokes or making astrology. And right now I found them and I started putting them on TikTok, and they're getting a following. So I'm like, well, maybe I pick that up, but something has to. I way overcommitted on my Patreon, and I'm like, either Patreon needs to turn into enough money that I don't stop, or there's something I'm going to have to pick that goes, because it's exhausting.
Yeah, my friend was telling me to start one, and I was like, I can't commit to that because I don't know what it's going to produce financially. And it's if people are paying, like, you don't want to let them down. You want to make sure that you are doing a good job for them.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I don't know. I mean, it's weird. It's weird because it's a situation where we have created these careers that not everyone could create. Because if you are a person who can stand alone and not rely on a corporation, like, yes, you're talented, but there's also some element of luck. Yes. Someone gave you exposure, something happened. So like we're in these positions where we are very, very lucky and very, very blessed, but it's also like can be totally exhausting sometimes. And because we don't get PTO and we don't get vacation time or sick days, it's really hard to figure out when you can get a break.
Yeah. You know,
and to get to the break, you have to work double time just to clear the time.
Yep.
There
is a strange thing going on right now. And I feel like it's either it's not hitting you as hard or you're doing great with it, which would be where, like, if you stopped your podcast, but there is something going on where I feel like the universe is stripping a lot of us of our identity because it wants us to ask questions. So as I am identified as a comedian, which I guess that's a dirty word now. I guess I'm supposed to say comic. I don't know why. I don't know when that I don't know.
Well, yeah, that seems weird.
The word police came in and that was wrong now. I don't know who decided that or why.
Oh, geez.
I know. But that being taken away is making me ask, who am I? Or what do I do if this isn't there? And it's kind of hard. And I think I hear that in my clients. They just, what is my purpose? Who am I? What am I doing? And it's a weird, you have to know who you are. Otherwise that's devastating.
Yeah. And it's so hard too, because it's also like, if you get too like focused on this idea of having an identity, it can also take away from your ability to just like live in the present, because you're always like thinking about how you're going to curate yourself. But I mean, I don't know. I feel like my biggest thing is I'm always just trying to make sure I am like something.
Oh, well, your voice cut out for 1 second. You said
Oh, that's okay. That was weird. It sounded like a weird sound. Did you hear that too? It was like
there was a couple of times that your voice faded off and came back in. Not enough that I would stop or say something, but I will tell you this is so weird. I've had 3 people call me about literal attacks, like psychic attacks or dark things in their place or scratches or weird stuff and like dark stuff. And so nothing surprises me right now if something's, but you know.
I 100% saw an orb too. Do you hear that again?
I didn't hear. My hearing's terrible, but I feel.
Okay. It sounds like.
Okay. Anybody else hear it? Leave it in the show.
I know. Yeah. It like also. I keep hearing it. Okay. Sorry. We won't.
Okay. And then you faded again. Yeah. I don't know if it's your house or mine, but it could be anything trying to. Maybe there's EVPs. Maybe people will hear the EVPs and they can leave notes on it. But everything is so active. I just ordered, and folks, I think somebody said I should do an ad for them. They're back online, the Incense Hut. They go on and off, and they have the best incense wet. Oh, probably by the time this goes out, they'll be done. Frankincense and myrrh, and like I think it's time. I'm like, I got to go do a couple things after this, and then I'm going to have this frankincense all over the place in here. Today is June 17th, I think, 18th. It is 50 degrees. It went from 80 yesterday to 50 today. That's not crazy.
Yeah, no, it's 57 here too. I'm like, well, because we're coming from LA too, where
they're having 100 degrees. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Which I'm glad I'm not in that. Yeah. I'm glad that I'm somewhere that has water.
I tell my friends, tell me how bad the heat is so I don't feel bad that I'm not there.
Yep. Pretty much.
I do love, you might have this there too, but I do love that here, the thunderstorms are unbelievable. It's like horror movie thunderstorms, and I love them.
I'm so jealous. We haven't had a lot of like lightning or thunder, which bums me out because I love lightning, but we have lots of like dreary storms, which I'm super into. People keep asking me if I'm tired of the rain, and I'm like, I moved here for the rain. This is why I'm here.
That would not work for me, but here these storms come out of nowhere. Like we're in some strange valley or something. So I do love, and the thunderstorms, but very strange wind.
When you do you have lightning there as well?
Oh yeah.
Do you feel, because I always notice the charge in the air when there's lightning. Do you notice the charge, and do you think it has an effect on your like psychic sensitivities or anything like that?
I don't know about psychic sensitivities, but I know I can't sit still.
Oh shit, yeah.
Like I pulled my parents outside on the patio, but my parents have dementia. And they're like, we're getting wet. And I'm like, but yeah, look at the storm. You know, I think when I'm done here in Utica, I'll go to Nashville and then I'll go back to California. Because I know the next time I go back to California, I'm not leaving, but hopefully a lot of things will be straightened out there. But I house sat for my friend in Nashville, and her house was on a hill where there was no one but a giant graveyard, which the graveyard doesn't freak me out, but it was every night in Nashville, they have like devastating thunder and lightning. Like it was like the first night was tornado stuff, and I'm all alone in this house, and I was like, oh my god, right? And the house was great, and they had a dog with me, so it was good. But I was like, oh my god, I love these thunderstorms. Oh wait, I don't when I'm all alone.
Right? Yeah, exactly. When it brings all the serial killers out.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Well, Renee, thank you, because I know I had given you the wrong date, and I sort of sprung this taping on you. So thank you so much for coming on.
No, that's okay. It was perfect because I just finished my coffee, so I felt like I could be a person.
All right. Tell everyone where to find you if you want. I know you might be taking a little break, but should they find you or look for your podcast episodes that are already out?
Yeah, so I have 2 podcasts that you can kind of tune into if you just want to check the backlog. And that's Witch Doctorate, which is my first podcast, and the Glittercast. And then mostly I'm active on Instagram for rainbowglitterstar. And then my website is rainbowglitterstar.com, which I also have spell kits, and you can book a reading. I am still doing readings. I am restricting, so I'm booking about a month to 2 months out. So if you are interested in the reading, reach out. Just know it might be a little bit of wait.
And also watch out for any fake rainbow glitter stars.
Oh my God, I know. Those people, I've just given up on trying to report them at this point. Like, it's just like, whatever.
Yeah. You know what I do? And if anyone else, if it's not my podcast, if I do, first of all, I made my thing private, and it says I'll let everyone in, so everyone can come in. I only turn down the weird ones that look like they're following
They're clearly fake.
Yeah. But also sometimes, especially with the jokes, on the bottom it says share this, but if it didn't originate from @Rontowski, it's a fake account. And I think they seem to, maybe just being private, they're not bothering me, but until I can get the little blue check, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. The blue chip is hard, man. They don't like giving that one out.
No. It's they want way too much from me. But all right, everybody, check out Renee. Now the next section is going to sound like I'm starting a new podcast, but stay tuned, because Martin is going to tell his story of his fae and a really interesting background story about his how he grew up, and it is pretty it's really great. Okay, everybody. But thank you, Renee.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Paranormal Karen. Really interesting show for you today. And I'm going to start by telling you guys all about my Patreon. I believe we're already in July. So I have started a $5 level that is 2 Paranormal Karen episodes. One is just me, and the other one is what's going on in Utica, all the crazy stuff that goes on in this place I live now. All right, folks. So today, I got a most interesting email from my new friend, Martin McKaylee, who was explaining a very positive experience with a puka. So I contacted him, and he is here to tell us his story. How are you today, Martin?
Good. Yourself?
Not too bad. And I had talked to you earlier. We had a nice long conversation, and your whole life is very, very interesting before we even get to the puka. And so thank you for coming on and taking the time. And I know, I feel like this story means something to you, so that other people can hear it and sort of understand a different side of it. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to start with where you grew up. Let's go all the way back to the beginning, to Virginia and where you grew up.
Okay. So I grew up in Arlington, Virginia. I was born in the family, so I'm the 8th child of 9. So that's quite a big bit right there.
It's a lot of
My
people.
dad was a My dad was it's kind of interesting. So my dad was a lobbyist for Cattlemen's Association,
Mm-hmm.
and he worked on like land management and like water rights between Colorado and Arizona. But he comes from a really small town. My mom was just a housewife, of course, because there's 9 kids, and but she also did some kind of interesting things too. So at one point before I was born, she used to make these little ornaments, and she would sell them out front of the Smithsonian in DC.
Okay.
And one day a guy came out and he said, "I'm going to have a security watch your booth. I want you to come in for cocoa." It was middle of winter. And basically, he was the curator for all the gift shops for Smithsonian. And he's like, "I want you to make 1,000 cookies a week, something like that.
For
I
the
want you to make these
Smithsonian?
ornaments." Yeah, so she sold them at like, and he curated them to every gift shop Smithsonian owns, like worldwide.
Oh, that's
So,
funny.
Isn't that insane, right? It's
Yes.
just like, what?
Well, it's kind of
So-
the luck that goes with your story.
All right, cool.
So, your mom was the cookie maker for all the Smithsonians. That's amazing. And that also reminds me of a time where we weren't buying cookies out of a box, where people actually made them. So that's hysterical.
Well, no, they weren't edible. They were just they were like an ornament for Christmas.
Oh.
They're pretty. So they're like little people, and they're like holding, and she hand painted them all, and like apparently it was like a whole thing. My dad helped her. All my brothers and sisters were helping her, and they would just make like these like dough is kind of like a flour dough, and then she would hand paint them all, and then she make these little ornaments, I guess, is like the 70s. So just insane.
Yes. Well, you guys, that's kind of the life you had. Now, 9 kids.
Right.
You guys, so your parents were not only Catholic, they were quite connected to the Catholic Church, weren't they?
They were. So I don't know entirely the whole story of like how well connected they were. They just kind of had some interesting things. So for instance, my uncle had gone back to Italy. He found our last name on a lot of like cathedrals. There's a lot of artisans in the family on the Italy side, and then my mother's side is Irish, and there's a lot there as well. There's also
just ancestry in the Catholic Church.
Yeah, quite a bit. So there's also like on my mother's side, I just found she has like a book of lineage, like a family tree thing that my aunt had done, or one of my aunts, and it had something to where some of like the grandparents and stuff were Masons. So it's just like, what's going on here? What's his connection? Which are like,
it keeps going deeper. Well, they so your dad is a lobbyist. Your mom's making cookies for a Christmas tree.
Right.
But they're meeting like Mother Teresa. They're like meeting high ups in the Catholic Church, correct?
Right. So like, okay, so they start. I barely remember it because for me it wasn't. So when I was it was in like second grade, I had a slight learning disability. I don't even really remember what it was, and so they took me out of Catholic school and they put me over in public school, but they put me in like a really nice public school, right? So I wasn't like really into the Catholicism as much. I was going to school. I wasn't learning about the prayers or Jesus or rosary or any of that kind of stuff. So my home life and my school life were like totally different places. You see what I mean? So my brothers and sisters all went to like Catholic school. So in a way, I think that learning disability kind of saved me a lot. And so we end up, my parents are really involved in the church. They moved from Colorado, so they moved from a really tiny town. My dad's from a town called Atwood. It's maybe like, I think his graduating class was like 3 people or something like that, right?
Oh, okay. So your parents, you grew up in Virginia or you grew up in Colorado?
I grew up in Virginia, and then when I was about 13, we moved to Colorado.
Okay. So it was in Virginia, though, that your parents are getting very, very involved in the Catholic Church, and they like get to meet Mother Teresa and kind of high up people, correct?
They do. So my father knew, I believe his name was Bishop Minzinti, something like that. So he was either a cardinal or a bishop at the time. And anyways, he becomes friends with this person and through like the church network in DC, right? And he ends up calling him one evening, and he's like, "Where are you?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm here at home." And he goes, "Well, head over to Maryland right now." And I guess they go to Maryland. I was there, so it's the last three of us were there. My brother, my little sister, and we go over to Maryland, and there's Mother Teresa is there, and she's indoctrinating a nun into her order. So
that's how everybody got to meet her.
Right. But it was only my father, my brother, my sister, and myself. So it was only the four of us.
That's
my mom was at like a PTA meeting or something, so she totally missed it.
Did you have a conversation with her? Did you get a vibe from her? It was sort of a quick in and out, hello and goodbye.
I think my father got like a prayer from her. My little sister's middle name is Teresa, so of course she was very like into it. I don't remember a lot of it. I just have the pictures. That's all. So
okay. Now, also at this time, there are some monks that your parents meet, correct?
Okay, there's one. So his name is Brother Joseph, and they're at this totally separate place in DC. It's Franciscan monastery. It's pretty big. It's you can look it up online. It's the Franciscan Monastery of Washington, D.C. or something like that. And it's huge, right? So they go to this, and probably every other Sunday they would go to this place, and there's a mass, and it's huge. It's like being in Rome.
Like a mega church? Sure.
So, right. It's like really big, really old. It had like replica catacombs in the bottom of it. Just interesting stuff, right? And there's a gift shop across the street. Well, that brother Joseph, worked in the gift shop, and my parents had gone over there, and they just got to talking about Catholicism, I guess, and he liked them. And so he started, he would sell things at the gift shop. We would have coffee and stuff. And I remember this quite a bit. And then he was like, "Hey, we have all this stuff in storage. Do you want some of it?" Right? So they go down to the basement. My parents have statues in their house, giant oil paintings, like 10-foot tall oil paintings, and just all the stuff he just
gave them. He gave them all these sacred objects.
Right. He like sold some of it. So what would happen is like other churches would get rid of their stuff. They would update it, and they would send it to this monastery. Apparently, maybe they do it with other monasteries, like a hoard. Kind of.
It almost sounds like a movie scene where people go into the basement and there's all this stuff. And so they started giving some of these things to your parents.
Right. So, and then later on, throughout the time, he gave them these first class relics. So they have first class relics, can't be sold. They're like a piece of hair or bone or like blood sometimes of like a saint, right?
Okay.
So they have I want to say they have about 10, but I've recently learned that they only got maybe about 7 of them from DC, from Brother Joseph, right? So
and there's other ones that came from other places?
Yeah, they came later on, I learned. So I thought they all came from DC. They actually it ties into it. So but a little bit later on. So they have these first 7, but they're like, for instance, my little sister's is like Saint Teresa's lock of hair or something like that, right?
Okay.
Or Pope Pius X's, I don't know, fingernail clippings or something. It's probably a piece of bone, actually. So like a little piece of bone. I have one. Mine is Saint Martin of Tours. And what is yours?
What is yours?
Saint Martin of Tours.
What is it though? Saint Martin of Tours.
It's a piece of bone. Sorry.
Oh, it's a piece of bone. Okay.
Tours is in France. It's
okay. So
with
these kind of weird sacred objects, which are hair or bone, what are you supposed to do with them? Just keep passing them on?
So they actually venerate them. So you say prayers to them. I guess it's kind of magical. It kind of feels like a magic thing. They'll never say that, but why not? I mean, if you
do they come with instructions? You're supposed to pray to them. What do you do with them?
So they come in a reliquary, they're called. So they're sealed. They have like a little glass dome. It's probably the size of like an American nickel, right? It's not very big. Like it's a little tiny piece. The piece of bone itself is probably like, like a little piece of paper. It's very small, right? So because they have to take it from the body, and they put it inside of this little thing called like a reliquary, and then it goes into a larger thing, usually like brass or something like that. If you've ever been to like a Catholic church, they have they keep the host inside of like this little case kind of, and they pull it out.
Okay. And so you have all these little relics and things like that, and now you guys move to Colorado.
Right. So my dad loses his job. He's getting too old. He's probably roughly in his 60s by now. He loses his job. He ends up getting a job working for New York Life, and he's selling like life insurance. So all of a sudden, like total move, right?
Total different. And you guys move into this huge house in Colorado.
Right. So we moved in Colorado, and so it turns out my parents have a dream. They want to, and this is probably why they got the relics in the first place too, is because they have a dream. They want to open up like a mission house, like a
place
like kind of like a bed and breakfast for people to come and stay, and like a retreat home. That's what they're called. Sorry,
a retreat home. And also, they did actually end up helping people, right? Women that were escaping certain situations.
They do. So they had like my mother ran like a safe house. I remember waking up and there'd be like a family, like a mother and like 4 kids there, and they'd be like running away from the father that was beating them and the husband and whatnot. So
right, okay, but this big house was actually what was it before it was a home? It was where the nuns stayed, right? It was a convent,
right? So it was a convent. At one point, it held 22 nuns inside of it. So now it's kind of got a lot of history behind it as well. At first, it was a judge's house. He built it in like I want to say like the turn of the century, right? Mm-hmm. Somewhere around there. And back then it wasn't 32 rooms. They added an addition of 8 extra rooms and like a basement piece to it. So for the nuns to stay in like somewhere in the 50s or 60s, somewhere around there. So
it goes from being a convent to you guys moving in. Now, at this point, is this place haunted?
It's so interesting place. Like, so let me give you kind of a layout of it. So you go in to the front. There's every room is pretty small, right? Okay. It's got like a grand room with like a grand fireplace. It's got like just all wood, like filigree work. It's got like columns and stuff with filigree on them, like a big wraparound staircase. Upstairs, it's got like I said, 8 bedrooms, all identical in the back. Each one had a sink and a mirror and a single bed in it. It was kind of weird.
Wow, that's how they must have lived. Yeah, they had little cells like that, and I'd imagine that's how they stayed.
The bathrooms, actually, this was pretty funny. The bathrooms have stalls in them, like a school, like wooden stalls.
Yeah.
So, because there would be like 2 toilets per bathroom with like a bathtub and 1 sink, and then like the basement bathroom. There's something like 5 bathrooms.
Yeah, so, the thrills of living in a convent, I guess, is what you'd say.
Yeah, it was very interesting. So
it's cool. So while you're there, what are some of the haunted things that happen, or what happens that you realize this?
There's some pretty interesting stuff. Like, for instance, like with my dad was coming home. He slipped on the ice, right? And his buddy slipped on the ice. He's an insurance agent, right? So he slips on the ice, but his foot comes up like over his head, right? Like, who does that? Okay, so he's getting ready for bed later that evening. His leg's really hurting because it came up over his head, and he's like, "Wow, this really hurts." And he takes off his sock, and he notices it looks like somebody had like their thumb and their pointer finger, and had grabbed like around his ankle.
Okay.
And there's like a handprint.
Yeah, and I'm going to pull this in here a little bit because I already know this story. So there's kind of weird activity inside, but basically what that sounds like is something outside attacked your father, grabbed him by the foot and sort of flipped him up, which is actually a pretty common. Usually something demonic will grab someone on their bed, grab them by the foot. That's like a very common flip. So your father is sort of under attack, we should say, coming in one night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he has that. There's what other things happen there?
Your mom had one too with a car, right?
Yeah, that was also outside. So, she's
okay. Go ahead.
I'm somewhere. I don't remember where I'm at, and she's trying to start her car, and or my car. She's trying to move it, right? Mm-hmm. And because she had to put something that, like, maybe another car or whatever. So it won't start. She can't get it to start. And as she's kind of getting out of it, it starts and it goes out of park and it drives across the street. There's a giant rose bush across the street at this apartment complex. And it stops because it hits this rose bush, but it drug her across the street. And she's like, what's going on here?
Like the accelerator got stuck or something. Yeah.
But she couldn't even get it turned over. That's what I'm saying. So it didn't even start, and it just went.
And which basically, this sounds very interesting to me in the way that it sounds like something is around the outside of this convent, not inside, outside. And once you get outside, your mom and your dad were probably under attack.
They were, and and this convent also has a chapel inside of it. So it's got its own chapel. So, because at one point it's owned by the archdiocese, of course, right? Mm-hmm. And it had been sitting empty for something like 6 years. Nobody wanted to buy it, and my parents bought it, and it had been sitting empty for all this time, So right. Nobody had been inside of it, but it has a chapel, and of course they fill it right away, and it's got like an altar space there. Later on, they acquired the altar from a nursing home, actually. Mm-hmm. And so not a lot of stuff's happening inside yet, but it does end up happening a little bit later on. So
yeah, and also and I'm going to recap this because this is where this all gets really, almost the thread through it is so interesting, which is your parents are of this sort of Catholic background. They are given these sacred objects. You guys move into a convent house that's kind of haunted, and they still have all these relics and things there. It's a safe house, which is almost interesting because it sounds like they're safe inside the house, but outside, as I would imagine, in sort of a area like that has so much sort of religious energy. Outside, it sounds like they're being attacked by something.
Right.
So now let's make a little bit of a leap here because this is such an interesting. You are living in the basement, I believe.
Let's see. Where am I living at that point? Either the basement or the attic. You could pick whichever room you wanted to have. Right?
And you said, and you were, your parents were very open. So at this point, because I believe you said a teenager now or a little older, and they're okay with you reading books about other religions or witchcraft or whatever. So you're not the sweet little Catholic boy. You're kind of open to a lot of things at this point. And so then, tell me about the first time you have contact with this puka. You're watching TV or something. How'd this happen?
Okay, so I bet, yes, I'm reading like all these different kinds of books. Now, mind you, like my father's really Catholic, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he's taking courses because he's big self-help junkie, Tony Robbins, all this kind of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's, stuff about your mind, how to control your mind and stuff. He's doing NLP, like neurological linguistic programming. He's doing kind of interesting, almost borderline occult kind of stuff. He's doing Jose Silva's course on the Silva mind control method.
Okay.
He's just doing some really interesting stuff. Like, he's not just reading like Catholic books all the time, right?
Okay, so everybody's all over the place. Got it.
Right. They've got quite a bit of information. And you could read in my family as much as you wanted, whatever you wanted, right? Okay. So they love that. So anyways, so I'm in the basement, and I sense something, and I'm watching TV, and there's this there's this long hallway that goes into like a laundry room back there and like some other stuff, right? So so I'm watching TV, and I look over, and there's a fuka there, which is at the time I had been reading the Brian Froud's Book of Fairies, and I'm very attracted to this like fuka figure, which is like a 8 foot tall man with a
bunny
goat's head,
looking outfit. Yeah, a bunny goat outfit. Yes, and your mother's from Ireland, which is where they seem to come from.
Right. She's and her family's from like County Cork, which is also specifically like where they kind of come from. So, but they're the Fae are kind of weird, because they're
mischievous.
I think they're and they're kind of a force of nature. They're like nature. So, so I'm staring at this,
and you recognize it because you've seen it in Brian Froud's book, and you recognize it, and you're not afraid.
No, I'm not afraid of it, and I'm just kind of curious. But it actually looks down at me, and it because I'm sitting down, and it looks down at me, and it kind of nods, like, there's no words spoken, but it's just kind of, almost like a telepathy, but more like a, like a body movement. So, to come with it down the hallway, and it turns around and it walks just down the hallway, and I'm like, nah, I don't think so. So I'm like, probably not right now. So,
and you're alone. But for some reason you're not afraid, and it's kind of telling you to go somewhere, and you're like, no.
Right, but I'm just kind of like, is this part of the course? Like, is this my life? Like, that's, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, no thanks. Like, I don't want to do that right now, because like, I think like when things like that appear to you, they appear in like the best possible way they can to not scare you.
Okay.
But you also have like, it's like people with aliens and things like that, where they are saying like, hey, I don't want to see you because you scare me, right? Like, so or I can only see you in like looking like Jesus, because otherwise that's what works for me. Right. Otherwise, it'll blow your mind.
Right.
It's too much.
So after that, when was the second time you see it, or you're aware of it?
So then I don't actually see it again. Then it comes in the form of a wind. Okay. Now that's where it starts coming in. It's probably about 5-6 years later, something like that. By then I have it tattooed to me, right? Okay. And I have this, so it's still actually on my arm. I have
and
this.
They do come, that's how people know where they, in the forest, they come as sort of like a little tornado.
Right. Which there's like some interesting stuff about the wind being like that, like a little tornado, not like a dust devil or anything like that. It's strange. I've tried to explain it before. Like, it's not like any other wind. Mm-hmm. It's like, that it's there. Right. Okay. And so, I'm going through, like, I'm living in Denver at this point, and I'm going through like a really difficult time. I've just like lost my job. I got to pay rent, all this kind of stuff going on. And, and this wind just like whips up out of my, bedroom window. Right. And it's blowing, and it's just like, whoa, it's like, pay attention, Yeah. And this is the first time I'm like really aware of this. Right.
Okay.
It's like, pay attention. It's like like I said, it's like a certain kind of wind, and it like gets me up, and it gets me kind of in a fear state, I want to say, but like in a good fear state, like it lights a fire, basically, under you, Okay. So that's the second time I feel it. And what ends up happening is I get an offer from my older sister, and to go back east and start making this like healing soap for tattoos, right? That's a whole other story right there. I know that sounds weird.
No, that's okay. I just want to keep you on track with the puka. So this is sort of an awareness. So now you still have this puka still visits you now, correct?
It does, yeah. So actually it came about again in the form of a wind.
Okay.
It came about, this was probably now about 9 months ago, and I'm in Michigan, and it happens again. And it wakes me up, and it's telling me that the relationship I'm in is not really good for me. And it turns out it's really bad for me. So we end up breaking up. We have this whole slew of stuff. I mean, it's super helpful, to have this like almost like a force of nature intuition, if that makes any kind of sense.
No, it does totally make sense. And I mean, I guess that's what that movie Harvey was actually about. But it does kind of sound like, in a weird way, this puka might have been assigned to you to sort of, when things are off track, put you back on track.
I believe so. I believe it's probably been there since birth. I don't know. I don't know how long it's been around for, but so here's a funny story, is that when I got it tattooed, people would be like, what is that? And I'd say, this is my self-portrait. Right. And they were like, they were either like, whoa, or they go, whoa, I see that. So they could, it's always been there, Right. It's just kind of a part of me. And it's like me having it tattooed as being like, this is what you maybe see.
Yeah, that attaches it to you. Yeah.
To like make other people comfortable, I guess, like.
So this is, so do you think that your shall we say puka would approve of this podcast, or it doesn't matter, or would like to be known as more of a positive force in the universe?
I guess, I've noticed a lot more people coming out with like fairy, either like a fairy connection or like a fae like bloodline.
Yes.
A lot of people. And I've actually in the last couple of weeks met like another person that has like a pixie fae in them. So it's pretty interesting. And I'd asked them, out of nowhere, I was just like, hey, do you believe you're an elemental? Because that's where I think the fae are really from, is like an elemental aspect, right? So and they were like, yeah, actually, I have this in me. Why do you ask me this? I'm like, because I'm like that. But it was off of nothing. I just got it in intuition, like I said, like in my head. I'm like, I gotta ask this person. So I did. But they had nothing on the outside of them that would tell you that at all.
Wow. I think some people are starting, you can kind of see it in them. You can kind of see it in their face and stuff like that.
Right. It's like coming out now, like it's safe.
Yeah.
Like I think this time is like, there's a lot of turmoil and stuff going on in the world, but it's like safe now to be like, hey, guess what? Like,
well, yes. And I appreciate that you are making it safe for others. As you know, I had a weirder experience, but so before we wrap this up, Martin, is there anything you think your puka wants everybody to know, or you want us to know about pukas?
Not really. I guess this is pretty much the story. It's just, I think, is to say that like it's okay to allow this. It's not bad. It's something good and it's helpful. So it's something you can maybe find inside of yourself and to, so to speak, bring out of the closet. So
that's great. I think I think you're probably speaking to people who would know. In other words, not looking for this, but would already know it's there, which is probably very helpful. Well, wonderful. Well, is there a place where everybody can follow you, or are you an Instagram guy or something like that?
I am. Yeah. So I've got an Instagram. It's usual_dust_specs. Usual dust specs. So you can find me there. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Send me a message. It's pretty private. So
awesome.
But yeah, I'll add you. So
awesome, great. All right, thanks, Martin. And you know what else? If anybody else has Fae stories or Puka stories, email them. I'll do a whole episode. Email them karenrontowski@gmail.com. Thank you so much, Martin.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, and thanks to Mike at Uno Rising Media. And we will see you all next week.